yes, my story is all about flying high. Oh man, and this is for all of my trapper friends out there. This is a fascinating story I found this morning. Just came out. Can TSA stop you for marijuana in your luggage, you guys? I can't believe that this is being reported, but nonetheless, maybe you're gearing up to fly home for the holidays or flee to a warm weather destination to escape the cold. And while many states have legalized marijuana, you may want to think twice before packing any. There are many things you can't bring throughout TSA security checkpoints at airports. That includes some timely items like baked goods, candies, and even your pets. When it comes to marijuana, it's a bit more complicated. Despite recent efforts, marijuana remains illegal on the federal level. TSA explains that it includes certain cannabis-infused products as well, like CBD oil. That's funny. Oh, man. However, you are allowed to bring cannabis products containing no more than 0.3 THC on a dry weight basis, or those approved by the FDA in your carry-on or checked luggage, according to TSA. Those rules apply regardless of departure or arrival airports. And, quote, TSA's response to the discovery of marijuana is the same every time. Same every time in every state at every airport, regardless of whether marijuana has been or is going to be legalized at that state level. TSA spokesman Lori Donkers previously explained to Nexstar. This also covers medical marijuana, she says. Say, for example, that you're flying from Denver to Los Angeles. Even though both states have legalized marijuana, that doesn't mean TSA won't stop you if they spot it in your bag. TSA is, however, primarily focused on your safety, the safety of other travelers, and potential threats. In quotes, the TSA has gone out of its way to say that its focus is not on marijuana. Larry Mishkin, an Illinois lawyer at the Hoban Law Group, which offers legal services for individuals in the marijuana industry, previously told the Washington Post. TSA officers do not search for marijuana or other illegal drugs, but are required to report any potential illegal items they find during a security screening process to local law enforcement. Those authorities then decide what, if any, steps are taken next. In quotes, whether or not the passenger is allowed to travel with marijuana is up to law enforcement's discretion, Donkers added. Either way, cannabis products can't go through the security checkpoint if found. Some airports like Chicago O'Hare's offers cannabis amnesty boxes where travelers can ditch their weed, like no one does that, before going through TSA. At Los Angeles International Airport, the LA Airport Police Division has, in quotes, no jurisdiction to arrest individuals if they are complying with state law, end quote, while in possession of marijuana. But the airport warns TSA screening areas are still under federal jurisdiction. You may still have to ditch the weed, but you likely won't get arrested. Ultimately, as Donkers explains, TSA focus is on terrorism and security threats to the aircraft and its passengers. Earlier this year, Ohio became the 24th state in which to legalize adult use cannabis, and it officially became legal during the first week of December. But Nexstar's WCMH reports that dispensaries aren't expected to be open until late next year, and some parts of the law haven't even been set in stone. I don't know why they included that in this article, but nonetheless, that's the story. And can you fly with THC in your bag? Well, I guess it's up to whatever TSA agent finds your stash and what the law for Johnny Law has to say about it. And then nonetheless, this is Jason Beck for the High at 9 News. What do y'all think about this?
I think great article, Jason. I'll start it off. I think it's a great article. It's important to read between the lines, I think, and understand that. Cool. They can say their focus is this and that and not this and not that, but they do have discretion. It is important to understand that. And you've got, law enforcement officers in every airport that also have their own discretion. It's going to vary case by case. The, hey, I've flown with it before and no one ever cared thing won't work, right? If you come across the wrong TSA agent and the wrong cop, period.
Or if you just get the wrong bag searched.
Totally, right? And so I'm a curious dude, and I oftentimes will chat up TSA after I get through security. I'm just like, yo, by the way, how do you feel about this? And more, I'd say 9 out of 10, and I fly a lot. 9 out of 10, I'd say ballparking are like, not my job to look for it, bro. like straight up not my job. Like that, cool. That's the dude I want, right? That's the person I want. But 1 out of 10's like not looking for it, but don't put it in a place where I am going to search for something. Let's say a water bottle is in my bathroom bag, and then next to that is some stuff I don't want you to find. That's kind of the answer. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I find it in this day and age, it's funny. It's easier to get through it with electronics than a bottle of water. It's insane.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's insane to me. Yes.
Or a tube of toothpaste.
Right. Exactly.
And what happens when they do find it?
It depends on the airport, Dr. T. It depends on the airport. So they turn you over to local law enforcement, and then local law enforcement will make that final determination as to whether you get arrested, whether you're able to fly, whether you have to huck your stuff, throw it in the trash before you can go, or in one of their fancy amnesty boxes. But
yeah, so, if it were me, oh, go ahead. No.
Oh, no. Go ahead, Chris. I was just going to tell Rico he's on mute, but please go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna say, listen, if I was working overtime at an airport, right? Like, I don't want to deal with this, man. Like, you know what I mean? But, you might not get that. You might not get that officer. You might get somebody who's like, just starting their overtime shift. Or how about this? Here's something that happens, right?
What about someone behind on their quota?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
No real quota. I know we love to have that argument. I've never been told a quota. They try to spin it. Well, there's not, Jason. There's just not a quota, but they do, some bosses do. Some bosses do try to say like, well, you're not, producing or this and that. So, I would like to be noisy on the radio and give a bunch of warnings if like that was coming down the pipeline. But here's a factor that cops do make, and they'll never admit to this. I'm at the end of my 10-hour overtime shift, getting paid time and a half, and I'm about to go home, and I got no plans for the next 4 days. I'm off for the next 4 days. Yeah, I'll take that report. Yeah, I'll write that citation, you know what I mean? And I'll go back to the station and milk it for another couple hours. That absolutely happens within law enforcement, and they will deny it. But I promise you, that's a data point that gets factored into, am I going to write this report? Am I going to cite this person or not? I'm not saying every time. I'm not saying with every cop.
But I've seen it. That's a good,
Yo, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, there you go, Rico. You're back.
All right. So I recently had a trip. I fly with weed all the time. Right. And I recently had a trip out, and I was taking an extended vacation somewhere. I was going to be there for like a week and a half, and we were late as fuck. If you're ever traveling with toddlers and everything, you're never on time. And let the family go first. And I was running through TSA checkpoint and everything, and I had a half zip, that fell out of my bag when I was grabbing it quickly. And I didn't even notice it. I was running, like literally the plane was boarding, and I had like 8 gates to run at LAX too. And they're yelling at me to come back. And the TSA agent had a zip in a Mylar bag, and handed it to me. She handed it to me.
She probably thought it was oregano.
Said, fly safe.
She's probably thought it was oregano.
Like, thank you.
So here, letter of the law. Letter of the law, spirit of the law, right?
My heart dropped, and I was like, oh, fuck. Mm-hmm. But she gave it to me and told me to fly safe. And that was it. So shout out to LAX, man. Shout out to LAX TSA and whatever your name was, lady.
Chris, what were you saying, Chris?
Thumbs up.
Letter of the law, spirit of the law, right? And so TSA is saying, letter of the law, this is not what we're looking for. And that's, she can hang her hat on that, right? Because, oftentimes people do, especially in law enforcement, stuff that, like, whether people know it, like it, agree with it, respect it or not, sometimes decisions get made based on what policy says. And it's like, listen, do I want to help you out? Is it the right thing to help you out? Is it the right thing to turn a blind eye? But guess what, man? Not worth my job, right? That's how some decisions get made too with agencies that enforce stuff. Mm-hmm. For her, right? It's right there in this article, Jason, that you're sharing. It's awesome. Hey, letter of the law is not, that's, Rico's not going to be able to do any damage on the plane with that. So here you go, man. Like, that's great. But there is discretion involved in that decision. And that TSA agent could have easily, brought Rico back, separated from his family, go talk to the cops, missed his flight, blah, blah, blah. Right. And in that regard, they could have potentially also fall within their policy and done, what they think is the air quotes right thing.
If they would have given Rico a case, would we have been able to call that a Rico case?
Oh man.
I think the one TSA agency that explicitly said that they will not be apprehending anybody was in New York, upstate New York. Remember we read that story? I think it was like a year and a half ago. They explicitly said that they're not looking for that. They're looking for bombs. They're looking for bombs and other illegal contraband.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a sensible amount and you're not being a jerk about it, it's not like a crazy smell or anything like that. So they have bigger fish to fry.
That's another big point right there too, Chris. With law enforcement, your demeanor often too can be a very big determinant factor in what the law enforcement agent decides to do with you ultimately. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, the good and bad is, it's good and bad depending on what we're talking about. But discretion exists within law enforcement. Discretion exists within agencies that enforce things. I had a call with a client. I'll give you a real quick one. They had like really non-compliant cameras, and the potential there is like, some sort of DCC fine or shutdown or who knows what the spectrum could be depending, again, who you interact with. And he's like, well, they didn't say anything yet. I'm like, yeah, listen, I hate to put the cop hat on, but like have heard that before, and I want to see you avoid a landmine. Just because somebody else said it was cool, it's cool to them. The rule is this, and if you come across, just so you know, and I'm not, you do what you want, but my job as a consultant is to help you identify the landmine so you can make the decision. So you never wake up going, how did this happen? You know what risk you take or you don't take. Yep. And that's what that convo was about. And it came all back to discretion. Well, this one person he interacted with didn't care and said it was cool. Well, that's great. The answer is it's not cool. The answer is it is not compliant. That's the answer. Whether anyone ever decides to enforce it, you take that one to Vegas all day long. And as long as you're cool with that, I'm cool with it. If you like it, I love it. But that's the answer. And so my job was to tell him about discretion and how that could adversely affect his business financially and otherwise. And then from that point on, you decide what you want to do and what you're comfortable with, but at least you know where the risk is. You don't ever want to go into any situation blindfolded and, get punched in the mouth out of left, and not see it.
Oh man.
Yeah, the TSA would much rather, they'd much rather grab your junk than, get you in trouble for weed.
Yeah.
Because apparently, that's one thing. The last 3 flights I was on, groping me in the middle of everybody else.
Did you ever tell him that you wanted a female officer instead of a male officer patting you down?
No, but I make a big deal out of it. It's like, oh, we can go to a private room and say, nah, man, you want to grab my dick? Grab my dick. I make a huge deal out of that. But I fly in sweatpants, man. I'm like, you can see right through my shit. Like, why are you trying to say, oh, there's something in there?
You wear see-through sweats, huh? Do they get foggy when you run in the airport?
I don't know, man. It's all performative, as we also have seen, like a 95% failure rate by TSA when attempting to actually screen for illegal contraband.
All right, well, we got to